A police officer sentenced to 40 years in prison
has in the last few seconds pleaded guilty to the murder.
In today's video, we take a look at some of the most brutal and corrupt cops who got sentenced to life for their crimes. Joseph Niedzianowski. Joseph Niedzianowski, a police officer in Chicago, was known as the most corrupt cop in the city. Despite his long and impressive career, he was not what he appeared to be. Behind his badge and uniform, he used his position of power to benefit himself and his associates. Throughout his 22-year career, Niedzianowski collaborated with gang members to run a cocaine sales operation. His extensive knowledge of the gang underworld and street informants enabled him to shake down drug dealers and sell drugs. Other police officers in Chicago were also involved in criminal activities during that time. Surprisingly, he received almost 60 citations for bravery and made high-profile arrests, earning praise for his work combating drug and weapon-related gangs. However, he would sell cocaine to someone, receive payment, and then his partner would pull over the individuals who had just obtained the drugs. In 2001, his crimes caught up with him, and he was arrested and brought to trial. His family was present in the courtroom, and while the judge expressed sympathy towards them, Niedzianowski's actions were strongly condemned. The judge informed him that he had violated society by trafficking drugs and arming street gang members involved in his crack cocaine distribution operation. Niedzianowski had betrayed his oath to protect the streets. Brian Nettles, the lead prosecutor in the case, described him as a rogue cop who betrayed the true heroes in law enforcement, honest officers who risk their lives daily. Nettles detailed his crimes, including exposing undercover police officers' identities to gang members, protecting criminal organizations, trafficking crack cocaine, and providing ammunition to street gangs. Niedzianowski was found guilty of drug conspiracy and racketeering and was sentenced to life in prison. Wayne Couzens. Wayne Couzens, a 48-year-old police officer in the Metropolitan Police, committed a crime that is so inhumane that it is still spoken about in the United Kingdom. On the evening of March 3, 2021, he abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered Sarah Everard, a 33-year-old marketing executive heading home from a friend's apartment near Clapham Common in South London. Couzens, who was off-duty then, pulled over next to Everard and identified himself as a police officer. He handcuffed her and forced her into his car. He then took her to a pond near Dover, where he violated and killed her. He proceeded to burn her body and disposed of her bones.
Sarah? I don't know. What Lemon Maidstone area that I got to off. I still don't know. I don't know. I just parked my car up, and then the van come up behind me, flashed me, and they all jumped out, and then they took this girl.
During the investigation, the police approached Couzens and informed him of his arrest. They believed he was involved in Everard's disappearance and knew her whereabouts. They questioned him about his connection to the crime and asked for information. Couzens initially claimed ignorance, but later mentioned being coerced by an unidentified group that instructed him to pick up girls for them. He said he had no choice after his family was threatened and taken away. David Carrick. David Carrick, born in Wiltshire, England, had a father who served in the Royal Artillery and a mother who worked as a cleaner. Despite this, he briefly served in the British Army before becoming a police officer in 2001. He was also a member of the Armed Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Team. However, behind the badge, Carrick engaged in disturbing behavior. In 2002, the Metropolitan Police received numerous reports of domestic abuse against him. Despite the complaints, he was recertified as an armed police officer in 2017. His colleagues even nicknamed him Bastard Dave due to his cruel nature. Carrick used dating apps between 2003 and 2020 to meet women. He exploited his position as an armed police officer to establish abusive relationships with them. He subjected his victims to physical and sexual abuse, including using a belt, locking them in confined spaces, urinating on them, and sexually assaulting them. He also controlled their clothing choices, sleeping arrangements, and even restricted their food intake. In 2021, another woman accused him of date rape, suspending him from police work. During his trial, Carrick initially pleaded not guilty to all charges.
These women are not weak or ineffectual. They were victims of your criminal mindset.
However, in December 2022, he changed his plea to guilty on 49 charges, including 24 counts of rape involving 12 female victims. The Mayor of London and the Chief Prosecutor of the Crown Prosecution Service expressed disgust and outrage at Carrick's actions.
Is a man who relentlessly degraded, belittled, sexually assaulted, and raped women.
He was found guilty and sentenced to 36 life sentences with a minimum term of 30 years and 239 days in prison. This case is just one example of a rogue cop whose crimes pale in comparison to other cases involving murderous police officers. Derek Stafford. Derek Stafford, a former deputy marshal, 33 years old, was involved in a tragic incident on November 3, 2015. During a traffic stop, he fatally shot 6-year-old Jeremy Mardes while his father was driving. Stafford and a colleague had pursued Jeremy's father, Chris Few, in a car chase after Few failed to pull over when signaled to do so by Stafford and his colleague. After a 2-mile chase, Stafford fired 14 shots into the vehicle, even though footage saw Few had his hands up. During the trial, Stafford apologized to Jeremy's father and said he would not have fired into the car if he had known a child was inside. He was found guilty of manslaughter and attempted manslaughter. The mandatory minimum sentence for his crimes was 20 years, while the maximum was 60 years. Ultimately, on March 31st, 2017, Stafford was sentenced to 40 years in prison. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.